Hello, and thank you for purchasing a Brownie's Third Lung tankless diving system. In this video, we're going to cover the main points of getting it set up. This video is a complement to the online training course and the user manual, so if you have not been through those yet, you're going to want to do that in addition to watching that video. We're going to try to keep this video concise so that you can get out diving sooner. Once you've completed watching this video, taking the online training course, and reading through the manual, if you have any questions remaining, please give us a call or send us an email here at Brownie's Third Lung, and we'll be happy to help you directly. First off, one thing to be aware of is that surface applied diving, like all forms of diving, does carry some inherent risk. So prior to using the equipment, every user should go through the online training course themselves and familiarize themselves with the equipment. They also should complete the fitness to dive evaluation, which is going to check if you have any medical conditions that you should get checked with a physician prior to diving. Once you open up your package, let's make sure that you have all of the components you need. It's going to start out with the compressor and power source, which in this case is the battery-powered Sea Lion. The yellow pan here is one of our gas-powered systems. So whichever one you have, most of the components are going to be similar. In the battery-powered system, we are going to have the accumulator tank. That does not come with the gas-powered systems. So coming off of the compressor, you're going to have the heat hose. This is used to actually dissipate heat from the compressor into the water. So we're going to make sure that this heat hose gets into the water. Right off of that, it's going to go into the main hose, which is going to split it off into diver hoses using these Y dividers here. The diver hose and then regulators. After that, you also have weight belts. So this is going to be how you clip into the unit, and weight pockets to help get you neutrally buoyant. We have the intake tube here. So this is going to be where your air intake is with the drip cap and then your dive flag attached to it, and flotation tube. So we're going to inflate this using the compressor and put it around the unit. You will also have the lid for the top of the system, and you may have other accessories that you purchase, such as the spare air kit or dive computers if you got the pro package, or any other accessories like a full face mask. So make sure that all of your components are ready to go so we can move ahead into the next step. To get your gasoline-powered Brownie system going, you are going to need gas and oil. These are not included with it. For the correct specifications, make sure to refer to the user manual for your system specifically. To get the unit running, you're going to make sure the fuel is into the on position, set the choke, get the unit running, and as it warms up, you can gradually reduce the choke and just confirm that your unit is running smoothly and consistently before you proceed. There are a few things, once you get it running smoothly, that you need to be aware of. These are some common mistakes, but easily avoidable. First thing you want to do is make sure to read this warning label here and understand that this throttle should not be moved. It's factory set to run the compressor at the correct RPMs. Increasing the RPMs could damage the system and void the warranty. The heat hose here, you always want to make sure to run that through the bottom of the pan so that it ends up in the water. That's going to help keep the compressor cool. You definitely do not want to run the heat hose over the top of the flotation tube. That heat obviously will not be getting cooled by the water, and also it could damage your flotation tube. Third, you also want to make sure that this intake staff is in place. That's going to move your intake to the top of the staff here. And you also want to make sure that the air is all clean, not contaminated. The heat hose and the intake staff also apply to the battery-powered system, but obviously here you don't have a gas-powered engine to get running. So with the battery-powered system, all you're going to need to do, make sure your battery is charged, put it into place, line it up with these contacts, make sure that lid is closed nice and tight, and then you can flip the switch on to get the compressor running. You can always see the voltage on the back of the system here. Now, before moving into getting your flotation tube inflated, you do want to go through a routine check every time before you go for a dive. So if you have a gasoline powered system, make sure that you do have the correct fuel and oil in the system before starting it up. If you have a battery powered system, make sure your battery is charged. As a side note, always make sure that you do not leave your battery dead for long periods of time. If it is dead, just at least charge it up to 50%. You are going to want to make sure that you have your intake staff in place, fully seated, and the drip cap up here. If you're starting the system up before you have this intake staff in place, always make sure that you do not start it up with this dust cap covering the intake, because this is where the air is going to go in. On each of the fittings, you're going to want to make sure the O-rings are in good condition. If any of the O-rings look worn or they're missing, you're going to need to replace those beforehand. On the heat hose here, you have an inline particle filter. You can open that up and make sure that that's clean prior to proceeding. We're going to use the compressor itself to inflate the tube. Right here on the flotation tube, you have the valve where we bring the heat hose of the unit and pump air directly into the tube. There are a couple things to be aware of. You do not want to overinflate the tube to the point where it pops, but you also do not want to underinflate the tube, because we want it to be nice and rigid in the water so that it floats the unit properly. As you're inflating the tube, keep your hand on it. Make sure that you feel for when it's completely rigid. At that point, you can stop. Be aware that if you do this in the shade or in a cooler environment and then move out into the sun or a hotter environment, that temperature change could cause the tube to expand a little bit. Be sure to compensate for that. Once your tube is fully inflated, you can go ahead and put this cover back over the valve and press the Velcro down. Next, we're going to put the pan into the float tube before we run the hoses. Once you've got your flotation tube fully inflated, you can go ahead and install it under the pan. You're going to run the heat hose out through the hole in the bottom of the pan, so it will be in the water during use. Your heat hose is going to connect to the accumulator tank if you have a battery-powered system. If you have a gasoline-powered system, you can skip that. You do not need the accumulator tank. For the battery-powered systems, the accumulator tank is going to float in the water alongside the unit. So next, you're going to have your main hose. This is one single hose that go and connect to all the divers, and then it splits off at your Y divider. For 2 divers, you just need 1 Y divider. For 3 divers, you would have a second Y divider. And at each point coming off of the Y divider, it's going to go to your diver hose with a clip for the weight belt and then your regulator. As you get the unit started running, put the unit safely into the water and let it drift off the back of the boat, or if you're at the beach, you can pay out this main hose. Make sure that all of the hoses are untangled, unkinked. Get them separated. You check the regulators to make sure each regulator is working properly. Next, make sure the weight belts are all fitted properly. Make sure that you have the correct weight for each diver at neutrally buoyant so that you neither sink nor float. Just do your final checks. Make sure everybody understands the dive plan, how long you're going to go, which direction to go. Make sure everybody has their hand signals and everything else that you learn in the online training course. And then get ready for a fun dive. When you finish up your dive, you're going to want to give everything a good freshwater rinse. You're going to want to make sure that the intake staff is still in place so that no water gets inside of the intake. And then as you go to shut down your system, if it's a gas-powered system, you want to leave it running and then turn your fuel lever to the off position. This will remove any remaining fuel from the carburetor as you prepare it for storage. You don't want any fuel in the carburetor, so keep it running and then turn the fuel to the off position. If you're on a battery-powered system, you're just going to go ahead and turn that switch from the on to the off position, and that will shut it off. Thank you again for your purchase of a Brownie's third lung tankless dive system. This video, as a reminder, was just to accompany your online training and user manual resources, so make sure that you do complete those entirely before use. If you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out. We're going to leave a list of things here in the next slide just to go through all of the important things as a reminder as you get started for your first usage. So feel free to refer to this anytime you need, and don't hesitate to reach out if you have any other questions.